Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unconfirmed, the show that reveals how the marquee names in crypto are reacting to the week's top headlines and gets the inside scoop on what they see on the horizon. I'm your host, Laura Shin, a journalist with over 2 decades of experience. I started covering crypto 5 years ago, and as a senior editor at Forbes, was the first mainstream media reporter to cover cryptocurrency full-time. Unchained and Unconfirmed are now published as videos. If you're not yet subscribed to the Unchained YouTube channel, head to youtube.com/c/Unchained podcast and subscribe today. Crypto.com, the crypto super app that lets you buy, earn, and spend crypto. Earn up to 8.5% per year on your Bitcoin. Download the Crypto.com app now. With Sun Exchange, you can easily earn Bitcoin while offsetting your carbon footprint and delivering solar energy to the world. Unconfirmed listeners get their first solar cell free by visiting sunexchange.com/unconfirmed. Today's guest is Mira Christanto, research analyst at Messari. Welcome, Mira.
Hi, Laura. Thanks so much for having me here.
You recently wrote a report on Asia's crypto landscape. Can you give us a broad overview of why and how Asia is such an important geography in crypto?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, my background is traditional finance, and I spent maybe about 15 years, focused on equities in terms of all the countries in Asia Pacific. So I was always very well acquainted with like the cultures and also the different politics and macroeconomic structures of the different countries. Sometimes what I take for granted in terms of understanding the market, I find that a lot of my colleagues or a lot of my friends in the US or Europe might not necessarily know what's happening in Asia. And so, I think a couple of interesting pointers is that, for example, by December last year, 42% of the market cap of the top 20 tokens that actually had a headquarters basically was from Asia. I think Chainalysis also said that 43% of global transactions are from Asia. And then also a lot of Asian companies basically dominate the future space. So 98% of, futures is based in Asia. I think people don't understand that Tether is based in Asia. Polkadot has a lot of supporters in Asia. And so a lot of tokens might see a lot of funding from Asian investors and Asian companies, although I think the media mostly picks up, US and Europe. And so I think this report tries to cover some of the stuff that we might miss in Asia.
Yeah, something that struck me in your report was you said that Asia accounts for 98% of ETH futures volumes and 94% of BTC futures volumes. Why does Asia so completely dominate the trading volume in futures?
Yeah, I guess that probably is like part human capital and part like the genesis. So if you think about it, so like for example, BitMEX, FTX, these are big companies that are in Hong Kong. And I think you have a huge concentration of financial services in Hong Kong, probably second to New York City. And you also have, I guess, a lot of regulation shaping how companies are. Until November last year, regulation was optional in Hong Kong. So now the SFC has made a proposal where, that would no longer be optional. But as a result, you see a ton of companies have, extremely exciting products. For example, like BitMEX created the first auto deleveraging product. FTX is very innovative and very quick, also to introduce new products. And I think that's just a background of where Hong Kong is in terms of being a financial hub.
Yeah, we saw how quickly FTX moved to capitalize on the GameStop momentum that was happening.
Yeah.
And so, obviously I just called out the difference in the futures volumes. And would you cite any other different trading behaviors that seem to be different between East and West?
I think in terms of trading behaviors, I think in the US and Europe, you see a lot of the decentralized movements, especially DeFi, coming from there. You really saw a lot of developers in China are on the back foot in terms of DeFi applications, and I think that's really because there are cultural differences. So, for example, I think in Asia, people are a lot more comfortable with centralization. If you look at Japan, it's okay. It's okay to like politicians. It's great. Bankers are seen as great. This is not the same narrative as the West. I think you see, for example, a lot of support of Ripple in Japan, in Philippines, because people have no problems with centralization. Yeah, there's a little bit of nuances in terms of different styles and different cultures. Of course, these are just generalizations of the culture. But yeah, I think you could see where a lot of, for example, another thing is that privacy tokens are generally not allowed in Asia by regulators. So whereas Zcash might be super popular with my colleagues in the US, among my friends in Asia, we don't really see that. We don't really see a lot of talk about privacy tokens, on this side of the world.
All right. Yeah. And one other thing that I noticed was it seems like in Asia as well, certain things just around the general culture in tech and investing are different. Like you cited how Wi-Fi penetration there is extremely high. And even just technology penetration, like I have relatives who live in Korea, and my parents get annoyed when they come to the US, and then they're like, everything's so backwards here, and whatever. But yeah, it was just really interesting reading some of these cultural differences and also the propensity toward gambling in Asian cultures. So, even though we've been talking about Asia just in these generalities, obviously it is a very diverse place. And reading your report, I was really struck by the differences in regulation across the region. So, do you want to just kind of give us an update about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think generally regulation is cautious. The first to regulate was, so if you look at like who tried to ban Bitcoin. So in 2013, Thailand banned Bitcoin, China banned Bitcoin 2014, Vietnam 2017, Korea 2018. So now regulation softened, but has been a little bit
Wait, I'm
more
sorry. Korea
cautious.
banned Bitcoin in 2018.
So basically in January 2018, the Ministry of Justice banned Bitcoin trading. And then they investigated 6 banks that basically were service providers to crypto exchanges. There was such a big backlash on this that they had to retract their ban. And so they said, they softened it. And they said, okay, in January 2022, there'll be a 20% profit tax on crypto trading. So I think,
Mm.
especially, this is probably really important for people to, realize that the people do have a voice. Like in India, when they tried to ban basically banking for crypto enterprises as well, like the Supreme Court eventually overturned the Reserve Bank of India's statement, basically because of the lobbying of crypto enterprises and the people there. So people aren't powerless to just accept what regulators are saying. They are responding, and regulators are also understanding that they have to, keep up with the times. So, I think an example of that is Japan. So Japan was the first to regulate in 2017. Japan has been hacked the most in the world. So you had Mt. Gox, you had CoinCheck. They've been hacked almost 1 million Bitcoin in the past few years, which is a tremendous amount. And despite that, you see a lot of regulations still coming out, and Japanese support is pretty strong, even amongst banks who tend to be sitting on the sidelines and investors and major investors in these crypto exchanges. I would say like the biggest difference for all these regulations is probably Hong Kong, because every country has always created a new framework for crypto. Hong Kong has done something different where they took the existing financial framework and they actually injected crypto. Crypto companies that are licensed, they have to follow all the regulations of other financial companies. Plus, they have the added layer of being a crypto company and having to do extra regulations for perhaps being a safe, showing that they're safe, showing that their leverage requirements are met. So it's actually doubly hard to be, licensed in Hong Kong. But at the same time, that means that STOs are wide open for digital asset exchanges in Hong Kong.
Oh, interesting. Security token offerings, you mean?
Yeah, secure token offerings.
Okay. And I also was curious, China seems to have a pretty complex relationship to Bitcoin. Can you just break down what is discouraged there, what at least, if not outright encouraged, at least flourishes anyway, and just explain what the Chinese regulatory approach is to Bitcoin?
Yeah, absolutely. So China, in 2014, they closed down exchanges, banking services, and then they said they banned finance companies from engaging in Bitcoin and other crypto. And in 2017, they banned Bitcoin trading and ICOs. So right now, Bitcoin trading is banned, but you can see like Huobi and OKX are obviously some of the largest. The way that they structure it is that it's kind of like an eBay, where it's a matching service. but they're not supposed to take custody. So really like, seller and buyer are supposed to, match with each other. And you have reviews as well, like, oh, this person is really honest and trustworthy. And therefore you might get better execution if you have, better reviews and 5 stars rating.
It's sort of like a local Bitcoin style.
Yeah, exactly. And so
And then
they're
do
not.
they use an escrow as well? And so people don't necessarily have to meet in person?
Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay.
there's lots of different channels. In India, this is what they did as well. So, for example, they said, we will transact between you two, and then I'll do the payment offline, maybe through WeChat or through bank transfer, and then I'll click confirm onto the exchange, and then they'll let the transaction through. Of course, me not being part of a exchange, maybe I can speak freely that this is obviously not really what happens. That, obviously, these exchanges take custody, which is not really, letter of the law, but, these guys have basically been doing that. So, which is okay. I mean,
Okay, yeah. Well, that's how things are done in the world in many places.
yeah, exactly.
All right. So, in a moment, we're going to explore more of what's happening in crypto in the rest of Asia. But first, a quick word from the sponsors who make this show possible. Join thousands of people from around the world who are earning Bitcoin while creating a more sustainable energy future with Sun Exchange. On the Sun Exchange platform, you can easily buy solar cells that power schools, businesses, and other organizations in sunny emerging markets. You'll earn Bitcoin for 20 years from the clean energy you generate, while offsetting your carbon footprint. Unconfirmed listeners get their first solar cell free by visiting sunexchange.com/unconfirmed. That's sunexchange.com/unconfirmed. Back to my conversation with Mira Christanto. So as you noted earlier, Japan has been through some of the biggest ups, sort of ups, but definitely downs in the crypto space with some of the largest hacks in crypto. And, also it was the first country to regulate. So right now, what would you say is kind of the state of things and how are companies being affected and the markets being affected there?
Yeah. So the state of things right now is that Japan is actually like a world, like two halves, where you've got crypto native companies, like Bitfire, for example, and you've got securities broker companies that are trying to enter the crypto space. So these security brokerage companies are big companies. You've heard of SBI, SoftBank Investment, although SoftBank had divested, many years ago. GMO is also a big FX trader, DMM, Rakuten. Rakuten is kind of like the Amazon of Japan. So if you can imagine, say, Amazon going into a crypto exchange, what is different is that these guys aren't really getting market share. It's really like the crypto native companies that are still gaining market share. So I think adoption is still relatively slow, especially if you think about it. Japan has the largest and most active retail FX trading in the world. So I think there's a lot of potential, but right now, like penetration isn't there yet. In terms of regulations, I think after the hacking in 2018, Coincheck's hacking of like $500 million, regulations and licensing has been quite slowed down. But basically, with a new license right now, they are making it a little bit more difficult for Japanese companies to become licensed. But that said, there's a ton of lobbying going on by major companies like Daiwa Asset Management to maybe create a Bitcoin ETF. I don't want to single out Daiwa because I don't think it's official, but there are a lot of major asset management companies that want to enter crypto. And if they do, then the banks will definitely follow because, they have to support, some of these big companies.
And what about South Korea? This country has the highest per capita involvement in crypto. You said that 1/3 of the workers have invested in crypto, which that's pretty amazing. So what else is happening in the place of the kimchi premium?
Yeah. So I think different in Korea is that people of all ages, so people's grandmothers, grandfathers are invested in crypto that you don't really see elsewhere. So people are quite forward. I think that's because Samsung is a big part of, Korean, I guess, development in terms of the tech sector. You don't really see any other country that has more police investigations and raids than Korea. they are basically quite cautious because they want to develop, regulators want to develop this market, slowly and basically curate it to be a more mature and, I guess, controlled market. But what happens is that they haven't officially licensed companies yet. They have created a framework, but what they do right now is kind of softly, I guess, creating a license by seeing like which companies have proper KYC, which proper companies have proper AML, and they will be the ones to be able to get like official banking partners. The companies that don't have this, it's kind of an indication that they haven't really, perhaps gotten to that level for, proper banking relationships. And so I guess softly, we might see that the ones with official banking partners might be the first ones to be licensed.
And is the kimchi premium still a thing there?
Yeah, kimchi premium is a thing because, for example, any companies, any countries that have, the capital controls like China, Korea, India, Vietnam, Malaysia, they will all have a premium or they'll all trade in a lag. So in Vietnam, if you see a sell down in the US or the rest of the world for Bitcoin prices, Vietnam tends to kind of not move for a few days and then they'll catch up later. There's always a lag, but all due to capital restrictions. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about Southeast Asia. What are you seeing there?
In terms of Southeast Asia, I think that regulations are starting to come through. So, for example, the first one that is most sophisticated is obviously Singapore. So, they haven't outright licensed a company yet, but they've grandfathered 107 companies under their Payment Services Act by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. So these companies don't need a license because they've been grandfathered. What happens then is that they will slowly be contacted for licensing. So Singapore, you actually see a ton of companies flock to Singapore to set up, either offices or regional offices to start companies there because if they can get the banking relationships, then it would make their lives easier as well. Second most sophisticated is probably Thailand. So Thailand, they've licensed about 13 companies. But the problem with Thailand, and I think they're unofficially relooking to this, is that they've separated kind of like the crypto versus the digital tokens. So that's kind of like layer ones versus, say, for example, ERC20 tokens. So you need licenses that are different for those. And then you need a different license if you're exchange, if you're a broker, or if you're a dealer. That makes it a little bit hard sometimes because if you want to execute, like where are you going to get the assets from? So I think they might relook into this. Philippines has been extremely forward in terms of licensing and in terms of adoption of crypto. I think because they have like a developer mindset. So last year in July, the government actually created a portion, like $10 million of their government bonds on Ethereum. I mean, it's still early days, and even if it's on Ethereum, they'll actually like just swap it with fiat. But I think it shows that that basically the government is looking at different ways to get basically all the Filipinos around the world involved. And this is another way for like the STO market to help with fundraising.
All right, well, did you want to talk about any other? I know Indonesia is a big country there, but I don't know how active it is.
Indonesia is a big country in terms of Indonesia is a big country in terms of population, but it's not that active. Gold is actually usually the first investment that people go to, not equities. I think people have not really discovered Bitcoin, but they are slowly. I think there's about like 2 million clients in Indonesia.
Okay. Yeah, I'm interested in Indonesia because I used to live there. I love it there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where did you live? In Jakarta?
No, in Bandung, which is like 3 hours southeast. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And the weather's much better than in Jakarta. And let's do a quick tour through India. I know there's been kind of a lot that's been seesawing back and forth, I feel like there.
Yeah, absolutely. So in India, in 2018, they tried to ban Bitcoin trading. In 2018, also, the RBI banned banking for crypto enterprises. So obviously, last year, I don't know if you recall, but around March, the Supreme Court overturned what the central bank said. And within 2 months, crypto trading went up 5x. Right now, there's still a ban to ban trading and to ban mining. I think this is like an ongoing process. So it's still on table. but there's no real news on it. I think that there's not a lot of funds in India, even if it's a very sophisticated investor base. Yeah, I think that's due to regulatory, regulatory confusion as well. I think what is interesting is that just like Indonesia in 1946, in 1978, in November 2016, they did this demonetization. So basically, overnight, they said all $10 bills are basically void. So this is to increase transparency. The effects of that was that Bitcoin trading doubled basically overnight because people started to understand that they wanted to be responsible for their own money, and you couldn't just like void their own cash overnight. So I think it's still a work in progress, but I think the focus there is more on regulatory clarity.
And then just to circle back to China, you mentioned mining and how India might be banning that. And I wondered in China, kind of what is the state of mining?
Yeah, I think when I hear like Americans talk about Bitcoin mining in China, Bitcoin like it's 65% mining in China compared to the whole world. I think people think that China is like one entity. What's really happening is that they're all super competitive. All these mining pools, like they are cutthroat against each other because they want the best rates, they want the best pricing, they want, the earliest machinery, they want the best locations. So these guys, they don't work in tandem. You can't say this is all one China. They're really completely separate entities that will do anything to kill each other off. So you know how competitive Chinese businesses are. So, this is no different in China as well. I think, there's this saying in China where the mountains are high and the emperor is far away. Especially in mining in China. I mean, these are in rural provinces typically where energy cost is cheap. So if you have a mining hub, it's really hard for the government to crack down on it because, you are a private entity after all.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I've heard that saying before. It must have been from somebody in kind of like, I guess, Chinese crypto Twitter, like maybe W1 or I don't know. I've definitely heard that saying before. Anyway, all right. Well, this has been super interesting. Thank you so much for coming on Unconfirmed.
Yeah. Laura, I have a question for you if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
So I've actually learned, a ton from your podcast, but I saw on your Twitter profile that you're a no coiner. Why is that?
Oh, just for journalistic ethics reasons, like some publications I might want to write for wouldn't like let me write for them if I owned the stuff that I cover. So
Okay.
I'm not like philosophically I'm a no coiner. I'm, a no coiner because I would rather write about Bitcoin than own it, I guess. Although I really would like to own it, but if that's going to prevent me from writing from certain publications, then I won't own it. So.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks for your contribution anyway for the dispersion of information.
Oh yeah. No, I love doing what I do. It's super, super, super fun. I've just been having so much more fun professionally than I could ever have imagined. So anyway, all right. Well, thanks again for coming on Unconfirmed.
Great. Thank you. Take care.
Don't forget, next up is the weekly news recap. Stick around for This Week in Crypto after this short break. Crypto.com, the crypto super app that lets you buy, earn, and spend crypto, all in one place. Earn up to 8.5% per year on your BTC. Download the Crypto.com app now to see the interest rates you could be earning on BTC and more than 20 other coins. Once in the app, you can apply for the Crypto.com Metal Card, which pays you up to 8% cash back instantly. Reserve yours now in the Crypto.com app. Thanks for tuning in to this week's news recap. First headline: Coinbase chooses NASDAQ for direct listing. The block reports that crypto exchange Coinbase, which will be going public via a direct listing later this year, has chosen NASDAQ as its venue. This selection is somewhat surprising given that the New York Stock Exchange, a NASDAQ rival, is an investor in Coinbase. However, NASDAQ tends to be the home for technology stocks. On January 25th, NASDAQ Private Market, which allows secondary trading for shares in private companies, launched trading for Coinbase stock. According to the block, shares were matched at a price of $200, which implies a roughly $50 billion valuation for the largest crypto on-ramp in the US. That figure is lower, however, than the implied $70 billion valuation based on the pre-IPO futures contracts that have been trading for Coinbase on derivatives exchange FTX. Next headline: MicroStrategy's Bitcoin for Corporations event draws more than 5,000. At the Bitcoin for Corporations event held by MicroStrategy on Wednesday and Thursday, Chief Executive Michael Saylor said that more than 5,600 people had registered, and 1,400 companies had signed up for the conference session on legal considerations regarding buying Bitcoin. At the conference, Ross Stevens, CEO of Stone Ridge Asset Management and Executive Chairman of NYDIG, its Bitcoin subsidiary, estimated that there would be $25 billion in institutional Bitcoin assets by year's end. Watch this space for the impact this event has on Bitcoin over the same time frame. In other corporate Bitcoin news, Ruffer, the multi-billion-dollar investment management firm in the UK that had invested in Bitcoin last November, sold 40% of its holdings, netting $650 million. Next headline, January sees spike in crypto metrics. Total adjusted on-chain volume, which is another measure for economic throughput, nearly doubled from December to January, hitting $529 billion. That's 72% higher than the previous all-time high of $308 billion in January 2018, the top of the last bubble. From December 2020, Bitcoin's on-chain volume jumped by 57% and Ethereum's by 181%, though Bitcoin's on-chain volume is still 30% larger than Ethereum's. However, when stablecoins are added, the 30-day moving average of on-chain volume on Ethereum is about 1.6 times that of Bitcoin. The stablecoin supply alone grew 34% from December to $37 billion in January. Meanwhile, Bitcoin miner revenues hit $1.1 billion, the second highest monthly revenue of all time, just after December 2017. Ethereum miners saw revenue of $830 million, a new all-time high. Next headline, ETH hits new record at $1,700. CME ETH futures are launching next week, and that's made quite a number of investors bullish on ETH. According to Business Insider, this week, the second largest crypto by market cap hit a record high of $1,698.56. DeFi tokens also rode ETH's coattails, with the coins of Chainlink, SushiSwap, and Aave hitting record highs on Wednesday or Thursday. Just before press time, it was reported that Yearn suffered a hack, with $2.8 million stolen by an attacker out of the version 1 YDAI vault, which in total lost $11 million. Aave founder Stani Kulachov tweeted shortly afterward that the exploit required 160 nested transactions that took advantage of multiple DeFi protocols and cost more than $5,000 in gas fees. Next headline, PayPal plans for crypto unit. PayPal CEO Daniel Schulman, in the firm's Q1 earnings call, revealed that the company intends to create a department dedicated to crypto services. He also noted, quote, "Everyone who signed up for crypto is opening up their app 2 times as much as they previously did." Next headline, Visa may utilize crypto networks. In Visa's Q1 earnings call, CEO Al Kelly said Visa could use crypto networks for payment, and that the firm was working with wallets and exchanges to enable users to purchase crypto assets with their credit cards. He added, quote, "It goes without saying, to the extent specific digital currency becomes a recognized means of exchange, there's no reason why we cannot add it to our network, which already supports over 160 currencies today." Next headline, IBM Blockchain Team shrivels up. CoinDesk reports that the IBM Blockchain Team is, quote, "down to almost nothing," citing 4 anonymous sources. The company's blockchain unit had greatly missed revenue targets 2 years running and had undergone a number of firings for business reasons. One ex-IBM source estimated that the team was down to 10% of its former self. Also, the previous head of blockchain at IBM, Jerry Cuomo, a previous guest on Unchained, now works on artificial intelligence. CoinDesk writes, quote, "Looking back to its 2017 financial statement, IBM called itself the, quote, blockchain leader for business. All mention of the technology is now absent from the company's statements." An IBM spokesperson said, quote, "IBM maintains a strong team dedicated to blockchain across the company." Time for fun bits. Forbes Blockchain 50. See who makes the current crypto billionaires list. The Forbes Blockchain 50 editorial package has a number of great articles. These are my former colleagues, including a roundup on everyone's favorite topic, Bitcoin for corporations, with appearances by Michael Saylor and Daniel Schulman, who were previously mentioned in this news recap, plus a Q&A with Anthony Scaramucci of Skybridge Capital, which has a Bitcoin fund. Also, despite what's happening at IBM, the package describes how enterprises are using blockchain technology, with Honeywell, South African Sappi, and Atlanta's Kona Services making the list. Finally, the package includes the latest crypto billionaires list, with Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong coming in at the top with $6.5 billion, FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried coming in second at $4.5 billion, Ripple chairman Chris Larsen, who is being sued by the SEC, coming in third at $2.9 billion, Michael Saylor at $2 billion, ranking fourth, and Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao, aka CZ, coming in fifth at $1.9 billion. Check out the full list to see who else made the cut. Second fun bits. With New York Mag, Sam Bankman-Fried ballparks his net worth at $10 billion. If back during the election you were wondering how it was that FTX founder and CEO Sam Bankman-Fried became the second biggest donor to then presidential candidate Joe Biden, New York Mag, which was one of my favorite magazines, has you covered. First, Sam gives his own estimate of his net worth, $10 billion, which is more than double the $4.5 billion that Forbes estimated. This entertaining profile gets his philosophical thoughts on factory farming with this choice quote: "It's a chicken being tortured for 6 to 8 weeks so we can spend half an hour eating it." The article then details the vegan's interest in the effective altruism movement, which is his way of trying to achieve the greatest good for the greatest number of people. The article also runs through the math by which he realized that giving more than $5 million to Biden and pro-Biden groups would have a greater impact on the election than knocking on doors in swing states. And of course, it takes us through his presidential election prediction market wins and losses, which he reveals resulted in a non-trivial profit. Definitely a fun read about one of the more notable characters in the crypto space. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. To learn more about Mira, and crypto in Asia, be sure to check out the links in the show notes. Don't forget, we are now on YouTube. Subscribe to the Unchained YouTube channel today. Unconfirmed is produced by me, Laura Shin, with help from Anthony Yoon, Daniel Ness, Shashank, and the team at CLK Transcription. Thanks for listening.